Hi, and welcome to another Words of Hope pastoral conversation. My name is Brian Venton, and today's chat is titled Behaviour That Matters, and is drawn from Proverbs 29, which reads, "He who is often reproved yet stiffens his neck will suddenly be broken beyond healing. A fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man quietly holds it back." Now, this proverb speaks to the sadness and the tragedy of an unrepentant life. The thought that any person could reach a mind state where they no longer heed instruction or reproof, who stiffen their neck or stubbornly refuse to accept criticism, and who become obstinate or after many reprimands defy being corrected, that person can then reach a place beyond healing is truly a sorry place to be. There are 3 points that I want to make here on this subject of behaviour that matters. First, it is not my responsibility to judge or condemn another person. I'm reminded of the actions and the words of Jesus in John 8 when the religious and judgmental elite of the time brought a woman to Jesus who was found in a place of sexual compromise. They wanted to test Jesus about his attitude to their religious law on the subject of adultery. And Jesus stooped down and he doodled in the sand for a time, and as they verbally began to harass him. And he finally stood up and he challenged their thinking, and he said this, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at this woman." Then he continued doodling. And after a period of considerable silence, each accuser left the scene, and Jesus turned and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." Now, the heart of God is such that no one should ever arrive at a point in their life where they are so stiff-necked and arrogant and unwilling to face their need for moral accountability. Our behaviour matters to him, and if there is any judgment to be made, then it is ultimately his responsibility and not mine to make that call. And the second point I want to make here is that we need to be on guard lest we end up forming a hardened and a calloused heart. We were recently given a book to read called Toxic Parents: Overcoming Their Hurtful Legacy and Reclaiming Your Life, written by Susan Forward. It's a brilliant book. In a chapter dealing with incest and sexual malfeasance within families, she made this closing comment. Quite short. She said, "Recognising a problem and seeking help is a sign not only of health, but also of courage." Now, I suggest that it is our unwillingness to acknowledge that our behaviour matters, and if left unchecked, can create all manner of consequences in our lives. Sadly, it can eventually lead to a hardened heart, or, as our text says, to a place beyond healing. At some point we may ask a question or two about ourselves. At some point someone may call out our untoward behaviour. But the reality for many of us is that we too easily excuse, recuse, and even redact any personal responsibility for our actions, and continue our deliberate and downward spiral towards behavioural decadence. Now, those living on an aeroplane flight path, or who live by a railway line, or who live on a busy road, can often find themselves getting to a stage in their living where they don't ever hear the surrounding noise. They become immune to the sounds. The same is true for our behaviour. Many people ignore the implications of their actions. They close their minds to the issues that are obvious to others. They turn a blind eye to the impacts of their behaviour on others, and they can even vehemently argue and defend their actions when it is clear to everyone around them that something is definitely awry. Now, Paul in Romans 1 warns about this when he says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Now the word suppress here means to actively push down, to hold back or push away the truth. Now sadly the text goes on to explain the consequences of this action. God gives people over to the sinful desires of their hearts, exchanging truth for lies, the pursuit of shameful lusts, having depraved minds, being filled with every kind of wickedness, senseless, faithless, heartless, and ruthless. Now the warning is stark. If we fail to heed instruction, the advices and the inputs and the objectivity, the sense of wisdom from significant others, then we can get to a point where we so justify and normalise our sinful behaviour that we run the risk of becoming broken and beyond healing. A hardened heart beyond recovery. That is a tragic place to be. But there's a third point that I want to make here that should give each one of us hope. God is less interested in what you and I have done and more interested on what you choose to become. Now let me make it very clear here what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that there are no consequences eternally or in the present for willful acts of rebelliousness and abhorrent behaviour. But I am saying that no matter how reprobate our lives are, God is very interested in our willingness to change and be different. Rather than continue being a captive to broken and debilitating and destructive life narratives, change is possible. Life can be different for us. Damage can be repaired. Relationships can be restored. God's forgiveness can be experienced. And new pathways can be charted. Now the pastor's heart in me wants to always give people another chance, to reach out to people and say that life can be different for you, that you don't need to live entrapped in a cocoon of silence. You can have a heart again that is soft and tender. Your life narratives and ambiguities can be re-scripted for you. Now the worst thing that I could ever imagine for anyone is that they go through life and find themselves in a place where their hearts are so hardened that no word of rebuke or correction can penetrate a stiff-necked attitude. Even the hardened and seemingly unresponsive hearts can be softened. Just as there are many who suppress truth, there are equally many who have opened their lives to correction. History is replete with examples. I encourage you to listen to God's voice and hear what he might be saying to you today through this pastoral chat. I trust that you've found this conversation helpful, and feel free to share the link with others, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. May God bless you, and remember, be teachable, for behaviour matters. Cheers, and see you next week.